it's great to have you with us as we approach the November elections and the Salinas mayoral debate put on by KION News here. I'm Scott Rates. I'm the news director. I will be the moderator as well. We have three wonderful candidates for the City of Salinas mayoral position, and we're going to start with 1-minute introductions from the three candidates here. And Chris Barrera, why don't you go ahead and begin and tell us about yourself in a minute, sir.
All right, it's an honor and privilege to be here at KION. A little bit about me. My name is Chris Barrera, and I'm running for Salinas Mayor. I'm 56 years old, born and raised in Salinas, California. I am a real estate agent. I serve on a lot of commissions and boards, president of a civil rights organization, ELK member, and Rotarian. Why I am running? I'm running because I truly love Salinas, and there's the thing I wouldn't do for Salinas. I love all the residents and businesses. I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity for all resources for Salinas and all small businesses. And I was born here, my kids are born here, my parents are born here, and my grandkids were born here. And so I want to do the best that I can for the great city of Salinas. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Mr. Garcia.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Ernesto Gonzalez Garcia. I grew up in Brownsville, Texas. Come from a family of 10, 4 sisters and 6 brothers. And so I started work picking cotton when there were no child labor laws when I was about 6, worked in different agricultural fields. When I was 18, we moved to the outskirts of Salinas to pick strawberries. And from there, I continued my education, became a campus supervisor, instructional aide, teacher, eventually became a vice principal and principal. I've worked in many schools here in Salinas. And for me, it was important for me to run for mayor because there are all of us will speak about certain issues that are important, but I think one of the big differences for me is that I believe in campaign finance reform. I believe that we need to have less signage out there, and one of the other pieces is I believe in term limits. I think those are important. And I'm not spending a lot of money. I'm spending under $2,000 of my own money because I firmly believe in campaign finance reform.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. We appreciate it. Mr. Donahue.
Yes, my name is Dennis Donahue, and I had the honor of serving as the Salinas mayor from 2006 to 2012, and very much look forward to the possibility of serving the community. Once again, there are a lot of important issues in front of Salinas, and I think one of the things that's important is how weighing in on issues is important, but I also offer a track record around key issues during my time in office of either making progress or getting results. And so in many respects, and I'm happy to weigh in on how I feel about the issues we're going to discuss today, but it's important to understand what the role of the mayor is and the necessary qualities in terms of leadership. Salinas is an important city. It is important to be present in City Hall in our neighborhoods, but the Salinas mayor is also working with Sacramento, Washington, and the private sector. And the current role I occupy working with Western Growers and the Innovation Center, I think has really positioned me well to help talk about the economic future, which is important so we have the necessary resources for our community and opportunities for our young people. And I look forward to the possibility of serving again.
Thank you to all three of you. Appreciate it. Good introductions. All right, so we have 3 topics that we're going to talk about this evening, and just to go over the rules here of this debate, we'll have 1 minute for each question that is answered. We'll go down each of you, and you'll have 1 minute to answer, and then we'll have time for a little bit of crosstalk after that if there's any debate on the topic. The first topic we want to bring up here is there is a perception out there from the folks in Salinas that there is a lot of dysfunctional leadership happening right now in the city of Salinas. What can you do as mayor? We've seen 2 people step away, including the mayor, step down over the past year. How can you fix that? How can you fix that perception for the people of Salinas? And then also, moving forward, what is the most important thing that you're going to bring to the table as mayor to fix that perception and address what the folks of Salinas are really passionate about. Things like crime, things like homelessness, which we'll get into later. But kind of a two-part question here. First, how do you fix the perception of the council? And Mr. Barrera, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, with that specific question, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions, holding people accountable, and trying to make Salinas a better, safer city. I think that Salinas is at a crossroads right now, and with that comes the hard conversation of things changing in our community. How will I change things? I am a consensus builder, and I get I'm known to get results. And with that, I think for the community, transparency is number one. So I would be in front of the camera, letting people know what's going on, and also I'm committed to having monthly town hall meetings in all of the districts. So that's what I will be doing.
Okay. Mr. Garcia, same question to you.
Yes, thank you. I guess, like you said, sometimes it's a matter of perception. But I also hear the other side of the coin in terms of the dysfunction, that many of the members of the council are doing the right thing by improving the sidewalks, improving roads. And so there's perceptions, and it runs both ways. So I can say that as a teacher, as a former teacher, as a former principal, and a former person in state and federal programs, and for those of you who are my former students, or the parents of my former students, or my colleagues, whether they were classified staff or certificated staff or administrators, you very well know how I operate, and I always work on consensus building, and we accomplished a lot in my term in the educational field.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Donahue, the same question to you, sir.
Well, I certainly hear, as I move throughout the community, that there is concern about City Hall. And I frankly think there are some pretty strong breadcrumbs that everybody ought to be concerned about. The departure of a long-serving city council member, the mayor stepping down, a police chief alluding that he left because of political reasons, the Salinas Police Officers Association endorsing no incumbents, a number of department head vacancies. All of that suggests perhaps things are not working. Having said that, what would I do? It's important for the mayor to work closely with the city manager, and the city manager is hired by the entire council. So the city, I think working with the city manager is key, but the other thing that I think is important, all councils have their own dynamic. And so I certainly believe and hope, if I have the opportunity to serve, that 2025 is a fresh start. And the thing that's important, I believe, is building relationships, communicating, and asking each council person, either what's important to you or what did you run on? How can I support you as the mayor? And likewise, I'm running on certain things, and I hope that support goes both ways. Right. So it does have to go both ways for it to work.
Thank you. Why do you think there was so much frustration with the current mayor and the mayor stepping down right now? And I'll just send that out there to all three of you.
Cool.
Mr. Burra, go ahead.
I think things are changing. The mayor didn't have the majority anymore, and when that happens, it requires conversations, and that doesn't mean to not run anymore or resign. Sit down and communicate.
Well, we had two. The mayor left very frustrated. A second council member left frustrated. Mm-hmm. What's going on there? I think the people really, I think a lot of people in this community, I talk to them, they say, what's going on over there in Salinas? Your thoughts, Mr. Donahue?
Well, one of the things I hear and occasionally observe is that people are simply commenting on what they're seeing in front of their very eyes in terms of tone, demeanor, and council interaction, and they think that speaks to that things are not working well behind the line. At the end of the day, as I say, it is significant that a well-respected, long-serving council member and mayor chose to step down. They're very experienced, and they've worked with a number of different councils, but for whatever reason, there's a strong suggestion that this combination is not working. And I don't think it has anything to do with change. The city's mission does not change. Keep us safe, provide services, whether it's parks, libraries, pave roads. Nothing has changed. The mission remains the same. So it would suggest that the personal dynamic is not working well.
Mr. Garcia, anything to add?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to perceptions, and things change, and those that are there in power, all of a sudden, they don't have individuals that are elected by their community to represent them come in with not necessarily changing the mission, but it's how you spent the budget. And so people are spending the budgets based on what their community is saying. So each community has the opportunity to elect a candidate of choice. And whatever message each of the candidates is sending out there, then that's how the individuals from those particular communities are going to vote, whether they feel that the candidates are raising over $100,000, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? So, or what the message of those that have been around and trying to make changes that haven't been made for 20, 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden they're happening. So those individuals have to make those decisions based on what they see and based on what they see also on the sample ballots.
And I'm going to ask this question here just before we wrap up this topic. Do you think right now, the way the council is lined up, do you think right now that the council is doing what is in the best interest of the people of Salinas? Mr. Donahue.
I think the council is doing what they think is right, but there is a perception that there are a lot of special interests involved. And my experience with Salinas, this is one city, many traditions, and we work together. And I think there, by virtue of the fact so many people are concerned, we're a city that's used to change, and certainly if you look at our business base, if you look at our families, we're used to change, multi-generational families. So change is not the issue. Do I think people are doing what they think is right? Yes, but it cuts both ways. When there's a strong reaction and people don't feel together, then I would suggest that's a problem, because Salinas moves forward best when we move together. We're going to have our disagreements here and there, but this appears to be deeper than that. But I'm not there. I don't know. And I grant that each council has its own dynamic, but it certainly suggests there's some reasons to be concerned, and a lot of people are.
Mr. Barrera, would you agree, disagree, elaborate?
So I am there. I would say when I say change, I'm talking about City Council is investing in all neighborhoods around Salinas. It's never been like that. When did you ever see Eucalyptus Street or Tout Street or San Juan Grade, roads being done? There's a lot of great stuff happening around around Salinas. And me personally, I think the City Council is doing a great job.
Anything to add there, Mr. Garcia, before you wrap up this break?
Yeah, I think that different individuals, for whatever reason, whether they're homeless, whether they come from poverty, whether whether they're renters or owners, I believe that different people come with different perceptions of what reality is. And so each of those individuals, whatever that spectrum they come from, are going to have those different perspectives. And so it's important that we listen to all individuals, and that I believe that the council is listening to those individuals and from the different perspectives of the community, and then they're making decisions. Obviously, at the end of the day, when you make decisions, some people are not going to be happy, unfortunately, but we can't wait around until everybody agrees on something to move forward. So it's important that the council continues to hear their community and make decisions based on their community.
All right, thank you. Thank you all three for that. Coming up next here, we're going to be talking about the housing crisis. It's a big topic, and what to do about the homeless crisis in the city of Salinas. Don't go anywhere. We'll come in right back. Welcome back to the Salinas mayoral debate here on KION News Channel 46. Hope you're doing well at home. It's a crisis that's really happening all across the state. We're talking about the housing crisis. Here in Monterey County, we've seen some of the highest rental prices really in the country. Folks finding it hard to pay rent and to make ends meet on a daily basis. And I want to start with Mr. Donahue on this question. Let's talk about the housing crisis just a little bit and how, as mayor, you would address that if you were elected, sir. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind is neither the mayor or the city is the developer. So it's important to take note of that. But when I was the mayor, the big challenge we had was we needed to get the future growth area into the city. And that took place between 2006, 2008, and here we are several years later. And the issue today is supply. And the backdrop of that question is we are an ag-based economy under the shadow of a tech-based economy, and that's a tough mismatch. And then between certain economic conditions, fundamentally we've had no inventory built, and that's what's caused. And the combination of those two things have really caused the housing crisis. It is important that we get the future growth area on track. The good news is in the next year or two, 2 out of the 3 sections of the future growth area should get moving. That's critical. That's important. It's also important to talk to those developers about as great a percentage of workforce housing and moderate and low income housing where we can, and that means more condos, apartments, and townhouses. So getting the future growth area is job one. But I also like some of the...
I'll have to cut you off there right there. I'll give you a chance to finish that thought, though. Hold that.
That's fine.
Mr. Garcia, same question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I guess one of the key questions is, to me, and I've always asked it, is what is really affordable housing here in Monterey County? Because, we can say, oh yeah, we can speak about affordable housing, but, if you're out there and you know that if you try to buy a house, you can't because they're just too expensive or the interest rates are too high. So what is really affordable housing? And we're talking about that, then it becomes affordable housing, but those people that are coming from San Jose and some other areas where they pay $2 million for a house down there, they'll pay $1 million here. Reality is that we've become bedroom communities all the way from here to Soledad, King City, etc. So I think that's something that's going to be tough, and we need to try to think a little bit differently in terms of trying to make bigger changes that really mean something as far as affordable housing. But I mean, it doesn't exist to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Barrera.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the ag companies for doing their part for their agricultural worker housing, and I hope that more ag companies will jump on board. I think that the future growth area we're at an exciting time right now. I'm a real estate agent, so everything is supply and demand. We start building those homes, rents will start leveling off, but I think it's very important to hold the developers accountable to keep that percentage up so residents here have an opportunity to buy something. I think it's pretty sad when our family and kids have to move away in order to buy a home, the American dream. So, and also we might even think to maybe increasing that percentage just to show our community that we do care about them, and so they can live where they grew up.
Great, thank you. We talk about building more housing to try to bring more housing in, but really, do we have the infrastructure here to be able to build more housing and to do that? Because I know that water is an issue and infrastructure in general is an issue. Mr. Donahue, I'll let you address that.
Well, I think we do have the infrastructure in place to move forward with building more housing, and our focus needs to be in the next couple of years. There's a regional needs housing assessment that we're assigned by the state, roughly 6,600 units, and half of that is low income and moderate income and workforce development. So we're obligated to do that, according to the state, and we've got to try and get that done. And I think we have to put pressure on where we find there may be infrastructure gaps. If we say infrastructure is a challenge, which it could be, then nothing gets built again, and we make no progress. So I think where there's opportunity, where there's housing, where people want to be, we get those problems solved. And it is, and you mentioned things like, I think there are programs such as helping first-time home buyers. I think we do need to look at more infill housing within the city. We need to look at zoning in terms of whether or not we can go up. And I also like some of the collaborative things that we've seen with the county, the Laurel Drive project. I think it's interesting to note that the Salinas Union High School District got involved in housing for teachers. So I think it's going to take a multifaceted approach to solve it. But at the end of the day, supply. We've got to build more housing.
Mr. Barrera, would a rental assistance program like the one that Monterey just recently rolled out, would that be something that, as mayor, you would look at? And is that something that you would try to bring to Salinas?
Most definitely. I would do whatever it took in order to make that American dream happen for our residents, for our nurses, our teachers, our officers, our firefighters. The city needs to do something regarding this issue.
Mr. Garcia, do you think enough is being done right now?
I can address a piece of infrastructure and a little bit about rent control, but I think that one of the things that you have to do, and that I've always did as an administrator, is you have to look at what your budget is. Just like a city or anybody that has their own personal budget, you have to look at your budget, and then you have to figure out where that money's going. So we look at infrastructure, and if there's needs that need to be fixed, then you need to make sure that those are budgeted in the city budget. And so money only goes so far. So whenever we promise that we're going to do certain things, sometimes we overpromise and underdeliver. And so for me, in terms of the housing piece and the rent control, I think it's important that we have it because it allows for individuals to at least stay, But I know that there are cases where rents have doubled and people are crying. I see it from an administrator point of view where they say, my rent's going from $1,500 to $3,000, and they say, I have 2 months, or if you don't pay, you leave. So.
And I want to address quickly the homeless crisis here. Because it is, go ahead, Mr. Barrera.
I wanted to address the infrastructure for the
Please.
future growth. Well, a lot of people aren't aware that Baranda is going to be getting widened to 4 lanes. Why it hasn't been done yet, that's a mystery. And then there's also going to be 3 to 4 roundabouts on Baranda.
Do you think that money that is being spent elsewhere and it should be spent on projects like this?
No, well, it's supposed to get started next year sometime. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so very, very excited about that.
Well, what triggers that money and that widening of the road is developments beginning to happen. So that's why it's important that new building construction begin, because that triggers funds, some of which the developers contribute to. So, infrastructure development as it relates to housing developments, those things go hand in hand. No supply, then that slows down the infrastructure in terms of who's contributing and who makes it happen.
Okay. Let's talk about the homeless crisis here, and I'll give you all time to answer this. But obviously, we've seen it's horrible. People living out on the street. We know that the rent prices are high. We just discussed that. But is it more? Is there more going on here? Is there an addiction crisis as well that's driving this homeless crisis? We know what Governor Gavin Newsom just did recently, saying that no more camping sites, and they're leaving it up to the cities to decide how they want to handle the camping ordinance. I want to talk directly about that. As mayor, how would you address the direction coming down from Sacramento, and how would you address the homeless crisis and folks who are on the street? And there's a lot of folks out there who don't want to check themselves into shelters because they don't want to follow the rules. They like to live on the streets, frankly. How would you address that? We'll start with you, Mr. Barrera.
Well, I found out today that 30% of the nation's homeless are in California. And so we have to think outside the box. And right now, the city of Salinas spends about $1.3 million in city cleanups. Now, during that city cleanup, the homeless are having their personal items, wallet, glasses, meds, thrown away. And at the end of the cleanup, the homeless person's still there, but in a worse off situation. I think we should take that money and use it on a piece of land, put tiny homes, let them put their tents up, but with rules, you know, that you can't bring in all of their belongings or the garbage and, you know, make it unsanitary. I think that the homeless issue, you know, our neighbors, our family members, our kids, you know, some of them are homeless, and I'm a realtor. If I don't sell a home, I could be homeless, you know. So I think that we need to treat this with a lot of care and love, and also our veterans. We need to take care of our veterans, our homeless veterans.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, same question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and for me, the issue of homeless, because we dealt a lot with that as an administrator at the different schools that I was, whether it was at Sherwood, Natividad, or whether it was Virginia Roca Barton, or Barton School, or Fremont, or Loma Vista School, and the different schools that I've been at, either subbing, is that the homeless issue is not just about the people that you see out there. People are classified as homeless if they are renting from somebody else, or if they're renting into the garage. So that's why the numbers in terms of homeless numbers are huge, but not necessarily because they're living on the streets. It's because they're classified as homeless under education code. And so, yes, we see people out there, but, you know, I wish the people wouldn't be out there in tents, but sometimes that's all they have. We could look at tiny homes, and that is important, but I think that those are some of the pieces that we need to look from the state and the federal government and local to see we can try to make things different, and so that funding is coming specifically for a purpose, and not that the city's trying to figure out what budget they use in order to try to make the changes necessary.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Donahue, I'll let you finish up.
Well, a couple of things. The city has adopted a housing first approach, that if you can get a person to housing, and then you have the opportunity to offer services. Now, that unfortunately has been slowed down a little bit with the bankruptcy issues surrounding Shangri-La, which is one of the operators that was providing some of the beds the city was providing. But I do support the housing first issue, but I also think that, you know, this whole issue is a little bit like an onion. There are a lot of different layers, and you peel them away. You know, veterans, fortunately, do appear to have access to a lot of resources and services, so we want to stay focused on that. The situational housing, if you can get those folks into some sort of living accommodations, then they've got a chance of getting back on their feet. And then you get into the really tough problem of whether it's mental health or substance abuse, and that would certainly suggest, and as is often the case in Salinas, we know what to do, but it's having capacity. Do we need more program? You know, does a Sun Street need to have more capacity? Do we have sufficient opportunities for folks who do take the services and are looking for a pathway? So organizations like The Bridge are important. I don't think we have a consensus on where exactly, whether it's tiny homes or tents, where they should be. And I would work very hard from a mayoral standpoint to work with council and to engage the community of where the best places or spots to do that, if that's the preferred route to go as part of the mix.
Thank you. Any response, either gentleman?
All true.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, coming up next, we're going to be talking about the police chief situation in Salinas right now. The top cop still vacant there. It's held by an interim chief who just recently took over that role. We'll talk about that and addressing crime in the city coming up next. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the Salinas mayoral debate here on KION News Channel 46. Now we're talking about the city's top cop job. Just recently, Commander Danny Warner took control of the interim police chief. That was from Assistant Chief John Murray, who had been holding down that role. The search is still on for a police chief right now. One of the reasons that the previous police chief left, Felice, after I interviewed him, was budgeting. He said, quite frankly, that his cops on the street were overworked, and he was worried that one of them was going to get injured. So I'll start with you, Mr. Barrera here. As mayor, how would you address this situation going? And I know the city manager has a lot of say in who will be appointed police chief, but how would you address this? How would you guide this? And what about budgeting for the police department?
Well, I think that, first of all, I come from a law enforcement family. My dad and stepdad were very involved in local law enforcement. I had a great relationship with the previous police chiefs, Adel Fresi and Roberto Felice, and we had some very interesting conversations. I'm excited to find out who the next police chief is going to be. I also had a great conversation with John, or a great relationship with John Murray as well. A lot of people think that the city council is the one that selects that police chief. Well, it's actually the city manager. Mm-hmm. And as mayor, as your mayor, I will work hand in hand with the new police chief and do my best to make sure that our police force is fully staffed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, that's one of the things that, I hear from the community, that police chiefs come and go. And they're here for 2-3 years, and then they retire, and then another one comes and is here for 2-3 years, and then they retire. So I think it's important that somehow the city manager gets the message that maybe we need to try to get somebody that's not about to retire, because we got that revolving door, and then it's going to cost the city a lot of money. So that's one piece that I think that if somebody can stay at least 5 years instead of 2 or 3 years, that would save the city a little bit of money. The other piece is that we need to look at the systems in place. As an administrator, I always looked at what systems were in place and what systems we have to change. What systems are institutionalized in terms of the hiring process of police officers, because if we looked at that system and we're able to change it legally within the system, then I think that we will be able to hire more police officers, and we shouldn't have such a strict system that it just doesn't allow for our local people to be hired.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Donahue.
Well, I worked with three police chiefs, and it is important to note that the police chief does report directly to the city manager. That said, the mayor should have, with the city manager's awareness, a direct relationship with the police chief in order to be an advocate and the chief's extension. This is in particular where it is the mayor is the mayor in the neighborhoods and in City Hall, but this is where Sacramento and Washington come in place. Matter as well, because one of the things you want to help the chief do is get more resources. The chief, if you want a well-run police department, get a great police chief, because they know what they're doing. But they need help in securing resources. So helping secure resources, we've got to be laser focused on this staffing issue. Today, as we sit here, we're about 129 officers, give or take. When I was the mayor, and this is just chronological, it had nothing to do with me, we were 180 plus. We're budgeted for 159. Every police chief I've talked to says the real number needs to be 210. So we've got to get more resources. Retention, we've got to have a more aggressive and creative attraction strategy, and we need to grow our own, so the Explorers program becomes really important. And lastly, when you're short on personnel, where can technology be helpful? And that goes directly to my current background, and I understand how that world works, and I think I can help the chief with that.
Thank you. Mr. Barrera, do you think that the police department right now is getting the funding that they need?
Yes, right now there's about 29 officers, just like Dennis said, but right now the budget is for 150 some officers. So and I believe we have 10, currently we have 10 officers going through the process. So we have, the money's there for new officers.
Mr. Garcia, do you think they're properly funded right now?
I believe that each city funds their different employees, a different formula. And so I believe that the funding that is there is properly budgeted. However, we say it's not properly budgeted, then where do you take it from? And so do you take it away from streets and sidewalks? Do you take it from the other staff that makes the least amount of money? So I think that we really need to look at how the budget is working and making sure that we don't favor one area of the budget versus another, because it's just, you have a checking book, you have a checking account, you wish you could have a car, you wish you could have a house, you wish you could go vacations, but then look at your checkbook and then you tell me what is real and how that works.
And Mr. Donahue, would you bring more funding to the police department?
Well, the current funding, if staffing is the focus, then the current funding is sufficient. What the current funding is not sufficient for is the long-term needs of the city. So if we really do need to get back to that build out of 180 plus or 210, we're just simply not properly positioned. On a year-to-year basis, you can make a mid-year adjustment and you go, okay, we're not going to hire X amount of officers, and that can go to a one-time project. But this is why I'm so focused on economic development and my background and what I think I can uniquely do as the mayor to help expand our tax base, which gives us more resources. The real conversation in this city, just as we have infrastructure concerns, we have public safety infrastructure concerns. We are not properly positioned for the long term to get that build out of, let's call it 200 plus officers for a city that is going to keep growing. So we're funded for today, we are not funded for tomorrow.
All right, thank you. All right, that wraps up this segment here. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to all the candidates one last time, just with their final message to you, the folks at home in the city of Salinas. Don't go anywhere, we're coming right back. And welcome back to the KION News Channel 46 Salinas Mayoral Debate. We hope you enjoyed it tonight. We just want to get everyone's message out there and help you make a better informed vote when you do go to the ballots this November. Big election coming up. So we're going to start with the final words from each candidate here, and we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia, sir, your final thoughts.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's important that we understand what hard work is. And like I said, I started working at the age of 6, picking cotton and picking oranges, then came to Salinas, picked strawberries, went through the university, got my teaching credential and administrative credential. I was campus supervisor, instructional aide, teacher, administrator, worked in state and federal programs. And from there, I've been involved in many different organizations. But I think the important piece and the difference, as I mentioned before, is that I believe in campaign finance reform, and I believe in term limits, and I believe that we shouldn't have such large signs out there. I'm only using under $2,000 of my own money because I believe in campaign finance reform. So if you have been a former student, a former parent of one of my students, a former colleague at whatever schools you work at, I would greatly appreciate it, and you know how I operate. I would greatly appreciate your vote. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Donahue.
How do you want to shape Salinas' future? I believe that is the most important question facing the next mayor of Salinas. And right now, I don't believe the city is in position to meet the hopes and expectations of the community. And I want to change that. I offer 6 years of mayoral experience, leadership, and results that are still relevant today. And at a time when the city is in transition, as a new city manager, my experience and ability to hit the ground running at City Hall is important. Moving Salinas forward doesn't require just knowledge of City Hall and our neighborhoods, but also Sacramento, Washington, and the private sector. I will bring a current working set of state, national, and global relationships to help expand our local economy. I am proud to have the support of the Salinas Police Officers Association, the Monterey County Association of Realtors, Central Coast Builders, the Chamber of Commerce, and the agribusiness community. These are the groups that help keep us safe, get things built, and provide jobs. And that's how we get the resources and opportunities we need for a bright future for Salinas. And it would be an honor to be part of building that future as your next mayor.
Thank you, sir. And finally, Mr. Barrera.
So thank you for this opportunity. My campaign is funded by the community, and we need a lot of work. A lot of work needs to be done. I want to clean up your city. I want to focus on the neighborhoods in the community and the quality of life issues. Work on our streets, sidewalks, and potholes, transparency, and accountability. Work on the noise complaints. Work on all the speeders, traffic, and parking issues. I want to promote female representation. I think only having 2 females in this election is atrocious. I'll be having town hall meetings once a month in all districts, and I hope to win your support. If you have any questions, you can call me. My number is 831-206-9089 to have that one-on-one conversation with you. I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you to all the candidates. Really appreciate it. Great conversations. We hope that this has helped you make a more informative vote at home. You know that there's a lot to choose from when you go to the November ballot and make that decision. We hope this transparency helps you make that educated, informed decision. Thank you so much for watching tonight. We really appreciate it. And make sure to tune in tonight at 10 and 11 for our newscast. That's all for us. Thanks for watching the Salinas Mayoral Debate here on KION News Channel 46. Good night, folks.